Recording in progress.
Sorry, I have no sound. I can't hear anything.
We haven't started yet. Sorry.
It's become
Oh, okay.
I was
Right.
just texting Director Louis. Okay, we're at 1 o'clock, and I'm going to call this special regional hospital district board meeting to order. And I'm going to start out with recognizing that we're meeting on the traditional territories of the Tla'amin people. And first up, well, second up, is approval of the agenda. We all have the agenda circulated. Any changes? Seeing none, can I have a motion? Director Lennox, seconded by Director Elliott. All in favor? Any opposed? None, that's carried. Okay, on to number 3, delegation and inquiries. Del Harper, you're up and you've got 10 minutes for your presentation. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to begin by sincerely thanking you all for your ongoing advocacy and support towards Foundry qathet. We are really deeply grateful to have the backing of the Qathet Regional Hospital District, and we truly appreciate the commitment you've shown so far in making this project a reality for our community's youth and their caregivers. So for your interest, the slideshow currently playing is images of Foundry centers already operating across the province, along with some data from their latest impact report. These are just real life examples of what's possible, and they represent what we can achieve here in qathet if we're able to secure the funding needed to bring this vision to life. So I know all of you are already familiar with the Foundry model. I've spoken to some of you many, many times, so I won't go too deeply into the details of integrated youth services, but I do want to emphasize how effective this model is and how urgently it's needed in our community. So Foundry qathet will provide a single welcoming point of access where young people ages 12 to 24 and their caregivers can walk in and receive multiple services and supports all under one roof. Right now, youth have to navigate a maze of separate systems: mental health, substance use, primary care, housing, employment, education, etc., just to name a few, often without any outside navigation support or clear direction. So Foundry qathet will change that. It brings all these services together under one roof, recognizing that challenges for youth rarely exist in isolation, and that early, easy to access support can prevent these crises before they happen. Research shows that when services are youth-friendly, when they're flexible and co-designed with young people, engagement increases, outcomes improve, and overall our communities become a lot stronger. So our vision for Foundry qathet is that it will make finding help simple, accessible, and holistic for our youth and their caregivers. We recognize that youth often face overlapping challenges and that true wellness means caring for the whole person. Our goal is to reduce barriers, improve early access to care, and ensure that every young person feels seen, supported, and safe. Ultimately, Foundry qathet will be far more than just a building. It'll be a community hub, a lifeline, and a launch pad where youth can build connection, resilience, and hope. We intentionally chose a larger space as the future home for Foundry qathet because in our rural and remote community, we face a critical shortage of youth-specific spaces, which in turn impacts service delivery. The few that exist in our community are doing remarkable work under immense pressure, often operating in facilities never designed for youth, and this strains the staff, resources, and most importantly, the young people themselves. Youth in our community have been vocal since the beginning. They want the core services Foundry qathet delivers, but they also want a place to gather, connect, and belong outside of that. So unlike other communities where Foundry centers exist alongside youth gathering spaces, we currently have none. So for Foundry qathet, the vision extends beyond just core service delivery. It's about creating a safe, welcoming hub where youth can gather, connect, meet their basic needs, build relationships, and foster community while also accessing an array of supports and services when they need them. Choosing a larger location also allows us to meet these needs and will position Foundry qathet as a central hub for integrated youth health and wellness services. The center will strengthen and build capacity within existing local organizations by offering them access to purpose-built, youth-friendly spaces, from private counseling and clinical rooms to multi-purpose group areas and flexible workstations for visiting professionals, just to name a few. This shared collaborative model is designed to foster partnership among community agency, enhance connections to the broader mental health system, and expand service delivery across the entire qathet region. As part of an integrated youth services network, Foundry qathet will empower local organizations to reach more youth, deliver more coordinated care, and create a stronger foundation for wellness in our community. Foundry qathet will also play a really large role in directly supporting our hospital and other health authority funded programs. By integrating care, we'll reduce duplication, which means no more repeated assessments, multiple intake processes, or youth cycling through our ER as a last resort because they couldn't find any help sooner. Initial data shows that Foundries are diverting visits from acute services like emergency departments. So then our emergency departments can increase their capacity to dedicate more time and resources on patients with urgent needs that require immediate attention. Instead of youth bouncing between disconnected services, Foundry offers a single coordinated access point, simplifying referral pathways and improving communication between partners. This reduces administrative burdens, supports better system navigation, and helps the local health authority integrate its service networks and reduce silos. Foundry qathet will become a hub for coordination, where data sharing, referrals, and service planning are streamlined. Foundry is more than a purpose-built space where youth can access services. It's an initiative and a movement towards a future for BC where young people and their families no longer have to ask, where can I go for help? Alongside other grants and donors, we are now relying on a significant contribution from the qathet Regional Hospital District, pending our healthcare designation, to move this project forward to completion. We've done all the necessary groundwork for this project, including but not limited to extensive youth and community engagement, service design, and site planning. We're ready to hit the ground running once funding is secured. Our goal is to open Foundry qathet in fall of 2026, and right now, financing is our only remaining barrier. I want to emphasize that financially supporting Foundry qathet is a safe, strategic, and sustainable investment for the QRHD. Ongoing operational funding is already secured and provided once doors open for service, ensuring reliable, long-term service delivery. Foundry centers across BC have proven their staying power. Once open, Foundry centers stay open and operational. There are 18 centers open and operating in BC, with the first one being in operation since 2015. Each Foundry center continues to thrive and serve their communities. Your investment will help build Foundry qathet and send a powerful message to other funders that our region is ready to invest in its youth and their futures. This isn't just a funding request from us, it's an invitation to take meaningful action. By supporting Foundry qathet for both the pursuit of a healthcare designation and for funding towards capital, the QRHD can lead by example and help build something that will change lives for generations to come. The youth of qathet deserve to know that their voice and well-being matters. Together, we can give them a place where hope, connection, and care all come together. Our youth are our most valuable investment. When we invest in the youth, we invest in the future of our entire community.
Thank you. Well, I've got a few questions, but I'm going to ask the assembly if there's any questions from members of the directors around the table. Director McCormick, go ahead.
Sorry, I had to get my audio back. Yeah, thank you. I'm really impressed with your presentation and the kind of the one-stop shop aspect of it. My question pertains to people who live on islands such as mine or Lasqueti or even Savory, who may not be able to physically get, without a whole lot of inconvenience, get to a central location. Is there also a website where those opportunities can be made available to people who can't get into the office?
Yeah, Foundry has an amazing app and a virtual platform where youth can text or call with counselors. They can even get virtual doctor's appointments. We are also looking into what we can do for Tuxedo in terms of the youth there. Like, would we prioritize some certain hours before the ferry for youth to be able to access it? So it's something we're still exploring. But outside of that, there is the Foundry Virtual, which is a great platform and really user-friendly for youth and caregivers to access services.
Well, thank you. No, I really appreciate that opportunity to have that access, and thank you for looking at special issues related to Tuxedo. Thanks.
Wonderful. Are there any other directors that would like to ask some questions? Director Elliott.
So When we received the application for funding from the Foundry originally back in the spring, it was not contemplated for qathet Hospital District. It was for our granting program. Have we received any kind of update to that funding request that better suits what we're trying to do here? Is the amount still the same as what you applied for before, or that's my question.
So for the QRD, I think we had applied for 25,000. Yeah. So when we learned about the hospital district funding, from what we gathered, there's like a guideline to match 40-60. So whatever government funding we've secured to date, the QRHD can match 40% of that. And I did send a letter that from Foundry that outlines all our government funding we've received to date and our funding we should have for the next year. I wish I had that number on the top of my head. I think it was sitting like around 3 million. So we're looking potentially at 40% of that. Yeah.
3,050,000.
There we go. I knew there was like one number I was missing.
3,050,000. I'm just taking notes. Any other directors with questions? Director Lennox.
Yeah, thanks, and thanks for your update. I think we're a little fuzzy on where we're at and the amount of funding that's being requested. I sort of had the same question, and I got some other discussions later on about these topics. So just I had the same thing about what's the current request from the QRD, and is it still 25,000? I guess is.
No, we're now looking at the QRHD as a more significant funding source.
We haven't really nailed that down yet, or?
Well, from what I was aware, it was up to you to decide. But we just sent in advance, like I sent in what confirmed government funding we had to date to help influence that decision.
Thank you.
And I can talk a little bit about what our gap to goal is right now. So our confirmed funding to date is sitting at about 2.7 million. But 400,000 of that can only be used for FF&E. It was a grant just for furniture, fixings, and equipment, so it can't be used towards our construction. And then our prospects in progress, excluding the funding that I'm hoping to get from the QRHD, is sitting at about 1,415,000. So that's all our grants that are out right now in us, and we're awaiting responses for. So our gap to goal, our confirmed funding, is sitting at 2.9 million at the moment.
Apologies, I'm just writing.
Yeah, I said those pretty fast.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the Assembly?
The terminology gap to goal would be once you hear from the 1.415 asks and the already established 2.7, that makes your budget like the 2.7 plus the 2.9 plus the 1.415.
So our gap to goal with prospects, like if all our prospects came in, we would be looking at 1,500,000 roughly. Yeah.
And there's uncertainty because some of those are still outstanding.
Yeah. A lot are, all of them. And for reference, like our construction total right now is sitting at, this is before we get these are just educated estimates. We haven't got formal contractor quotes because we haven't put RFPs out yet. But it's sitting at 3,825,000. And so our gap to goal to pass the construction hurdle is around 1.5 million. And I truly believe if we can get over the construction hurdle, the FF&E portion of the funding we need will be a lot easier to go for. And there's different funding avenues we can get there to secure that.
Okay. Before we continue, I'm just going to ask the Assembly if we can have another 5 minutes on the delegation timer. Okay, seeing nods and thumbs up. Okay, we'll get another 5 minutes on the timer. I got some questions. First one's already been asked. How much money do you need? Yeah. My next question is, if you don't receive any funding from the hospital district because of challenges that we're running into, or the board decides not to, it's up to the board. What is the likelihood that you could move forward with the Foundry project?
Is it possible to supply this information in confident, as there's some information I haven't disclosed publicly at this time to like the broader community?
That's a good question. Would there be a enactment under the legislation that we could move in camera to receive additional information? Checking with our corporate officer, our professional of legislative matters.
1 second. Yes, so our our notice and our agenda outlines that we can go into section, enclosed under section 91K, which means we've provided advance notice for that, so it's legally okay to move in camera, and I would suggest moving in camera now for that purpose.
I think that's a great suggestion. So if someone would like to read out or move, we don't actually need to read it out. Section under 9.1, we could go in camera and receive the additional information which the delegation is unwilling to disclose publicly. Director Southcott. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. So we will be going in camera under section 91K and M.
Yeah, 91K and N. Is that what's moved by Director Southcott and seconded by Director Elliott? Okay. And gonna call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None. That is carried. Okay, we're moving in camera. Just please stand by as our technical.
Recording in progress.
I gotta go. They're starting again. See if they carry 2 months later. Keep that thought.
Listen to what Director Fall's talking about at home here.
And I just heard him said, I gotta go, meeting's getting started again. Okay, we're rolling. Okay, we're coming back out of our in-camera session and we are back into the public session. And let's see, we've finished all the delegation and inquiries. We've also received information in camera, and I'm wondering, do we want to entertain a motion in relation to the delegation's request today? Looking around, seeing no motion. Oh, I see Director McCormick, sorry.
Thanks, Chair. We could ask for a staff report on the impact of providing financial support to Foundry and what the impact would be.
Okay, so that's being moved by Director McCormick and seconded by Director Elliott.
Along with a question to clarify the motion.
Oh, okay.
The impact of what? So is it the impact of a few different options such as 1.5, 1.5, or what are we looking for options on? Or what's the specific direction?
Director McCormick.
Thank you. Yeah. The specific direction is what are the options available and what's the impact of those options? So that's it. That's what I had in mind anyway.
Director Elliott?
I like the motion. I think we should specify what options we're looking for, because otherwise the sky's the limit, right? And so I think we would have at the upper limit, the 1.5, and at the lower limit, maybe 5 or $500,000 with maybe one in the middle. And then we could look at how that plays out for taxpayers in the report for those various different options. And then I would support a motion that's amended that way. So I would like to make an amendment that does that.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Question for our corporate officer before we get all over the place. I believe Director McCormick made a motion. We've had a little bit of discussion for it, but did we actually clarify and make sure the motion is what we want it to be before we officially recognize it?
Well, the chair hasn't stated the motion yet. So technically it's still, we're still in development stage.
Okay.
And so a motion to refer a request does often require getting more details and specifying what is exactly desired from this board.
Okay. So this is a motion to refer the request to our staff with options between 0.5, 1, and 0.5 million is the 3 options I'm hearing. And of course, any other impacts I believe will be found in the report. Is that the motion that is being moved, Director McCormick? Okay, nodded. Do we have a seconder? Director Elliott. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. It's moved, it's seconded. Go ahead, Director Elliott.
I like the idea of getting staff input on what that means for us as an organization and our budget for these various different options, because to consider an amount today without a report like that feels a little uncomfortable.
Okay, Director McCormick, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I also feel uncomfortable without a report from staff, because while I would like to be as generous as possible and say, oh, here's the full amount because it's a worthy cause and it's badly needed, the impact of doing that could have, greater repercussions for us down the road. So I think it's important getting that information from staff before we make our decision.
Thank you. Director Lennox, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. Just to add another point here, we also have other business on our agenda today with other requests that have from similar limited funding sources, and so I think it behooves us to get an accurate understanding of all of them combined.
Mm-hmm. Though this motion is specific to Foundry.
I understand.
Okay, anyone else on this motion? I'll just add my own voice into it. In the past, I've said I'm very supportive of getting the designation for Foundry and Miklat. Of course, the challenge is always when the rubber hits the road, how much money are we talking about? When there was the original grant request, I believe to the QRD, it was in the package $25,000 for QRD and a potential 25,000 from QRHD. We've heard some much higher numbers today, and I think that raises a lot larger questions, and I think that's where a staff report will actually help us make a better decision. And I guess I have one question to our staff, because we did hear from the delegation that, they would like, some info, they would kind of like an answer at some point. And I'm just wondering, what is our timeline on this staff report? Is it something that's fairly straightforward, or is it going to be a fairly, and is it going to be a large endeavor? Professor.
We would have to take it, once the board adopts it, we would have to take it and look at our work plan and see what competing interests there are right now. We are entering budget season, so we could provide that information back to the board at the next hospital meeting in December, like what the timeline is expected to be.
Okay, wonderful. Because that's my thoughts is we're entering budget season and we're talking about money, and I think those are things that align. With that, anyone else? Seeing none, gonna call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None, that's carried. Okay. We got unfinished business.
Sure.
Yes, go ahead, Director Elliott.
Well, we learned from the letter that we can apply to be a designated facility with the following information, and it was kind of attached there. I'm wondering if we can still write the letter and let them know that we're going to forward the decision around funding once we have it, because we're in the process of sorting that out. And whether that could go in ahead or whether that's not a possibility, and whether we should be making a motion about that.
That's a good question. I might be able to answer it. I'm not sure if our staff are necessarily able to answer the question, because the designation of healthcare facilities is something that I've been hearing from other hospital districts around the province, that they're really on a case-by-case basis, and how the process actually unfolds is a bit of a gray area for a lot of healthcare facilities, hospital districts. And my thoughts are, there's no harm in trying and actually putting in the application and actually maybe saying, hey, we will give you the last item on the list, which is how much we would be willing to fund at a later time. So yeah, that might answer your question, and I'm not sure if our staff have any additional information on top of that. Seeing none. In terms of if we were to pass a motion to put the application into the Ministry of Health, do we have to tell the province specifically right now how much we're looking to give these entities, or can we let the province know that we'll provide that information at a later date once we've actually determined it? Linda Greenan.
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair. The correspondence from the ministry dated September 24th, 2025 does request that we have a copy of the approved RHD resolution indicating how much funding the RHD is planning on giving the facility if the designation goes through. So, I mean, like you say, we could try, but they are asking for that information.
My concern is we're also looking for support from Vancouver Coastal Health. And if they're not considering at the same time we are, it could be a much longer process than it needs to be. And so I'm trying to figure out a way where they can wrap their heads around what letter they put in, and we can wrap our heads around that funding piece at the same time and cut back and be doing things at the same time and cut back on the overall time requirement. So that's what I was trying to think about. And I know we don't have a number and we can't do that resolution yet. We're working on that, but there's a full intention for us to do some funding at some level. And so I just trying to speed up the process, and I don't know how. I don't, if everybody has any suggestions.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as how do we speed up the process, but at the same time, it's there's a little bit of a chicken and the egg thing here. And we're speaking specifically to the Foundry request, I presume.
And maybe it's a letter to Vancouver Coastal Health, letting them know where we're at in the process and our intention, so that they can go ahead and start considering their stuff, even if it's not the application yet.
Yeah.
Is a motion for a letter to Vancouver Coastal Health might be the thing to do that.
Question to our corporate officer, did we already pass a motion in June asking for a letter of support for Vancouver Coastal Health?
If you wouldn't mind, Chair, I'll just have a look
Yeah.
at you continue discussions and then I'll interrupt you.
Because I'll let you in on, it's not really a secret. At our recent working group meeting, there was some discussion about a letter of support from Vancouver Coastal Health, I believe in September, and they were supportive of a letter of support, though at our most recent meeting, I believe last week, they're still wanting to make sure what are the full implications for Vancouver Coastal Health, of course, from their legal teams. And, you know, once you get a health facility designation, it can quite often come with other strings and requirements, and Vancouver Coastal Health may not be fully, they may not want to be fully committed to some of those operational requirements. So for example, to Miklat, a full healthcare facility designation has greater staffing requirements. They're not able to, say, rely on volunteers to, say, drive clients to places. They will then have to do like full-time staffing and a lot greater administration costs. And that's something that I believe Vancouver Coastal Health is looking into the details. But I do believe that even if we were to pass a motion saying that we would support such an application, it doesn't mean it just gets approved right away. We still do have to wait for Vancouver Coastal Health. And I believe our next meeting with Vancouver Coastal Health is this month. I believe the last one was in September. Director McCormick, do you recall off the top of your head? I think it's sometime this month.
I'll check my schedule.
Okay, thank you. So I believe that we could have a motion to the effect, but we will still need to pick a number. Oh, Director McCormick, go ahead.
November 30th. No, November 20th, sorry. November 20th at 10:30.
November 20th. So we absolutely could pass the motion. And if we do pass the motion, we can also bring that to our working group meeting, which from hearing from Vancouver Coastal Health discussions, that's the location that we should really be having these kind of discussions between Hospital District and Vancouver Coastal Health to try and get us into alignment. So what's your thoughts? Do we want to pass a motion, or do we want to go ahead, Director Elliott?
So I'm just trying to figure out what motion we're looking for. Is it a letter to Vancouver Coastal Health laying out where we're at in the process and our intentions? Or is it just simply a letter asking them to support our application? Or what is it?
Oh, good question. As I understand it, we have to submit the information that is found in the letter from the minister, the Deputy Minister of Health. Vancouver Coastal Health will also have to provide a letter of support in addition to the information that we provide. So it's kind of a two-part process, and then it goes to the ministry, and they may or may not approve it, or they may ask for more information.
Okay, so what if we make a motion to write a letter, and as an FYI, attach the letter we got from the ministry, and the letter will state, we intend to move forward with this application. We are currently considering some of the elements that we need to put into it. Please be advised that we will be seeking your support as part of this application. And then if they need legal input or whatever they need, they can start doing that before we submit our application.
Is that specific to Foundry or to Miklat, or for both?
Right now we're addressing Foundry,
Okay.
And I think Miklat is different because they have residential care and Foundries do not.
Yeah.
And they are different potatoes. So preferably we're doing that for Foundry, and they can consider it for the Foundry. Our process for Miklat may need something different. So that's where I'd like to make that motion. I just wondering if, because we're on the fly here, if that makes sense or whether that's a good idea or a bad idea. And I guess I'm asking that.
Sorry to put the corporate officer on the spot.
Thank you, through the chair. Yes, so I think here what we have a motion on the, or that has already been adopted to find out level of funding. And that's a key part of deciding whether to go through the process of the designation of the healthcare facility. As I understand it, we need to provide that information to the ministry.
Vancouver Coastal Health.
And then so
To the ministry.
what we're hoping to understand from Vancouver Coastal Health is likely what the full implications of redesignation of the site would be from their point, from an operational and capital liability perspective. So is that what we're trying to figure out? Like, do we want them to say, provide a letter of support?
So they have to in order for us to get through the process. There may be some internal work they need to do in order to write that letter of support. I thought by giving them a heads up that this is coming and the intention is to do it, even though we're not ready to submit just yet, that they might be able to start doing some of that internal work that they need to do in advance of receiving all of our information, because we don't have it all yet. That's what so I thought a letter saying, you know, the qathet Hospital District has passed a motion to explore options for making application, and once we submit our application, we'll be coming to you for a letter of support as per the attached letter, which was from the ministry, just so they're aware that we are considering it and they're part of our process, and they can read from the letter the same as we can what their part is. And so then if they have input at all or want to talk about it, they could do so at the working group on November 20th.
I'm wondering if maybe we're overcomplicating it, and maybe the motion could be that we forward the information to the working group meeting in November, and then we just get it on the agenda.
That could work.
Does that sound like a simple way to do it?
Yeah, no, I'd be okay with that too. I just wasn't sure what motion we were looking for to make all that happen.
So a motion to forward the Foundry capital funding request and health facility designation to the November working group meeting with VCH.
Yes.
So
I'll make that motion.
seconded, moved and seconded. Okay.
There we go. Sorry.
Okay. Any discussion? Oh, Director McCormick.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The working group isn't a decision-making body. It's an avenue for consultation between VCH and our board prior to their cost share request being made. So I'm not sure what our expectation is of referring it to them. Are we expecting that they are going to come back to the board, to the hospital board, with a piece of advice, or what's the point? What's the expectation of that?
Information sharing.
Yeah, I'll answer that. My understanding is it'll be a way to share information between the regional hospital district and Vancouver Coastal Health to find out what are the potential limits or barriers from Vancouver Coastal Health's perspective from them to, you know, how do they provide us a letter of support? Like that's the real challenge here, because when we go down this list, we could say, yeah, we're all in favor, but if Vancouver Coastal Health has some hurdles or some other challenges, say with their legal department, that's the best place to do it at, is at the working group. That's my understanding is, and you are absolutely correct. It is not a decision-making body, so of course we wouldn't be passing anything, but we would then be able to report back to the hospital district meeting in December as to what are the challenges with Vancouver Coastal Health and whether or not a letter of support is something that's simple or challenging from their point of view. Does that answer your question, Director McCormick? Oh, yeah, okay, thumbs up. Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None. That is carried. Okay, now, as much as I want to move on, let's also address the Miklat Recovery Society, which is also down here under unfinished business. Now the question is, do we want to do a similar, where we send it over to the working group? Or I've also submitted a potential motion to our corporate officer. And I'll see if it can be put up on the screen for Miklat. We'll get it up on the screen. Hopefully this is fairly straightforward. And there we go. I'll let everyone read it. Take your time. Okay, I'm seeing some nods.
Things are moving.
Oh.
You taking questions before?
Yeah, we'll have a little bit of question period before we get into the actual motion itself.
Is that roof recovery part of the?
Well, let's
do
the questions.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, speakers list. I'll go first to just kind of give everyone a little bit of background information. So I've been speaking with Miklat over the last several months because they did come to us with a cost share request. They went over budget on their capital upgrades. It is our facility. It is on our property. We do run into the same challenge of health facility designation. And one of the challenges I heard back from Miklat was if they were to get the full health facility designation under Vancouver Coastal Health, the whole bag, it would reduce the capacity to 6 people from 12 in their new upgrade in the care rooms because it doesn't meet their total square footage as would be required under a health facility. Increase overhead to meet elevated staffing requirements for each of the additional reporting requirements. You can't use volunteers in most positions, such as driving or monitoring clients. Staffing costs will jump. Administration burden will increase. Compliance becomes a full-time job. Liability exposure increases. You need extremely detailed care plans, short-term plans, nutrition tracking, medical records for every client. I can keep going on, but I think you get the point. And my thoughts are when I read the Hospital District Act, under Section 49, it says the minister can designate something a health facility under this enactment. And I believe that if we were to move forward with this application, we need to be very specific with our request to the minister to say, hey, if you're going to make this a health facility, make it a health facility, but only under the Hospital District Act and only so that we can provide funding so that we don't create a whole lot of extra regulation and requirements and costs to the Miklat Society that is operating in our facility. That's the first part of the motion. The second part of the motion is in relation to the amount. Miklat had requested, I believe, over $500,000 earlier. I had a subsequent email, I believe, late last week from Miklat, and they had an estimated cost for their roof replacement of about $125,000. That'll get them a lot closer to their funding goal. And I figured, if we own the building, if you replace the roof, it protects everything underneath it. So I figured that would be a simple way to move forward on this item. I hope that answers most of your questions, but now I'll open it up for questions around the table. Director Elliott, you're first.
Is the roof replacement part of the budget that they have $553,000 over?
I do believe it was, yes.
And that part has not been done yet, or it is done?
It's already completed.
Okay.
Any other questions? Director Lennox.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, along the same lines here, I'm just looking at page 5 of 10 in the report. My original question was, is the request 553? And that stands because it's been a little while since we heard from them, so that you've sort of explained, that's your understanding. I do currently with what's in front of me, I agree with the concept that the building is ours, and if the roof needs replacement, it does. But I was gonna ask the same question, was it part of the original scope of the project? And I guess what I'm seeing when I look at these, some significant odor, 118%, 430% like overages from the original plan is concerning about how the project was planned out. But it is our facility, so I think I understand the intent of your, is it a motion or it's a motion?
It's a motion, but it hasn't been seconded
you.
yet. Just going around this table for some discussion or some questions. I see Ms. Greenan. Go ahead, Ms. Greenan.
Thank you, Chair, through the chair. I do think if you do consider that motion, that it does have to be, giving them the funds does have to hinge on them first having the healthcare facility designation.
Yes, absolutely. As I understand it, unless they get that designation, we're not able to give them a penny. Is my understanding. But that second clause at least meets the requirement of the Deputy Minister of Health's letter, which says if we want to have them become a healthcare facility, we actually have to have a motion for at least some amount of money. I think that answers it. Director Brander.
Thanks, Chair. You have that section, I don't have the motion in front of me anymore, but it says something along the lines of strictly for funding purposes, have it be designated a health facility. I find it hard to believe that they would make an exception to us. Like if they're trying to designate somebody as a health facility, why would they allow us, little qathet Regional Hospital District to pull out parts of their designation? It doesn't sound as though Miklat wants to be regarded as a full-fledged health facility for a number of reasons. So it's almost like we're forcing it on them, and I'd be surprised if the province would be willing to make those concessions, that we just pick what we want out of it and not pick everything out of it. I don't know they would have a lot of success, but I'm no expert.
I believe that will be up to the province to decide. They might come back and say, well, you either become a full healthcare facility or nothing at all, and then I think we can make that decision at a later time. But that's this thing. I get hung up on my words on this one, as you can obviously tell, because a lot of the things we do in local government, we love to copy and paste what other local governments do. But this is an issue that when talking to other hospital districts, we're running into the same problem. So it's not something that we've really been able to just go, oh, well, we'll just, adopt what the Central Coast did or what Sunshine Coast did. Director Southcott.
Thank you, Chair. So earlier in this meeting, I was referring to benefits in Iceland from the
Director Southcott,
healthcare.
Is that the question? We're not in the motion yet, sorry.
Yes, it is. It's a question with regard to this motion right here. Well, the question is how we avoid, again, one more slide of senior government responsibilities, which is basically social programming to local government taxpayers, which, if I refer back to what I was just speaking of, kind of thing doesn't happen where you have a unitary government, but we don't. We have the perfect situation here where what has been, in previous generations, senior government responsibilities are now sliding into our lap. And I think the answer to that question is by seeing that this is happening. It has been happening as long as I've been involved in local government, which is over 10 years now. So I don't think there's a way of preventing this kind of thing from happening. And the benefits are clear. There's no question about that in my mind. So I think I think it basically is a rhetorical question. However, I think the answer is in my question as well. Oh, sorry, that's not much of a question really, Chair.
We're thinking on the fly, all of us.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And Director Lennox?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just really, I have an idea here. So we're struggling with the designation of this facility as a healthcare facility, but really what this potential motion is about replacing the roof. We own the building, we need to replace the roof. I suggest that we just own that part of it outside of this application and the process and truly, we understand that our roof needs to be replaced. Let's replace the roof. Does that make sense and not complicate it by putting it into the capital grants toward Miklat recovery? I'm not sure if we can separate the two. Maybe that's the question I have.
No, that's a good question. And I guess that's a question for our corporate Manager of Financial Services, Linda Greening. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. The only concern with that is that the roof is already done. It's already replaced.
Yeah. Thank you for that reminder.
And then Director Louie, do you have a question?
No, not in particular. That's where my mind went to exactly. Me and Jason are on the same wavelength today, seems like. But yeah, it's an asset that we own, and in terms of asset management, we would take care of this building regardless. But you know, to understand that the money's already been spent, that was sort of my question, I guess, in a way. Is like, how do we work through that? Does it have to be in a sponsorship or an application for a health facility, or can we just take care of our assets as we normally would?
Now, I'm hearing a lot of questions that are really starting to lean more into debate, and I'm wondering maybe we should just get the motion on the floor. Director Elliott.
My question is about the number. So they had a lot of things separated out, which sections of the budget. They didn't have one separated for the roof. Like they have the foundation, a lot of different things in here, but not the roof. And so I'm wondering how you determine what 125,000 is for the roof. Is it just out of the air, or do you know what the roof cost?
I will provide you that information. I do believe, here we go. I received this email. Hi, Mark. I had an idea the other day. This is from Robert Fitzpatrick, Program Manager of Miklat Recovery. What if, as landlords, the qathet Regional Hospital Board were to cover the cost of the roof that was installed? It often comes under the owner's responsibility to replace an aging roof. I'd have to look at the exact numbers, but it appears that the roof was approximately $125,000 to replace and was finished in the spring. That would get us much closer to the current $195,000 shortfall. And I hope that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Now, I know there's a lot of folks. Oh, Director McCormick, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Is my audio on? Yes, it seems to be on. The perfect model is in existence with the Texada Health Center. The regional district owns the building and funds improvements to the physical plant of the building, but the operation is done through Vancouver Coastal Health. So, and that operates as a service for which Area G taxpayers pay each year, you know, to support. So my question is, can the regional hospital district operate a service and do something similar, you know, with Miklat, since this model already seems to exist and be working?
That's a really good question because, as I understand, the Texada Health Center is a siloed service of the regional district. Mm-hmm. Is there any possibility to have a siloed service of the regional hospital district? I don't think I've ever heard of one, but I'm seeing the corporate officer shake her head.
That's my question. Yep.
It's a good question.
Thank you. Well, regional hospital district sole purpose is to provide capital funding for designated facilities. And so I don't believe they have service establishment powers.
I believe that's the answer. We do not believe we have service establishment powers at the regional hospital district.
I see. Too bad though. It's a good model and it works.
Mm-hmm. And as much as I would love to talk about all the other health clinics and what's going on Laskedia and on Texada, we got to stay focused so that we can get out of here at a reasonable time today. Okay, is this a question?
No, I think you were looking for someone to move the motion.
Yes.
I'll move the motion. And I think it'd be good to put it back on the screen so that we can see it. I was a little bit concerned about the wording
Okay.
around
So move.
something.
Seconder? Seconder doesn't mean you
Can
support
we
it.
see it?
Yeah, let's
See
see
the
the
motion, please?
Let me get it posted up. There we go. Okay, moved by Director Elliott. I'll second it. Okay, go ahead, Director Elliott.
I don't think we have any say over whether it creates any additional regulatory requirements. And what I understood from Mr. Fitzpatrick's email to you is he was looking for a way to not be designated and just still get the funding for the roof, because it was likely partly something we should have covered in the first place. Our normal process would be to set it aside in a budget and approve it and then do the roof, not do the roof first and then backdate it. So I don't mind making the motion, but I'm a little bit concerned about what Director Brander brought up, is that this is not really what Miklat was asking us for. But if we get an answer back from the province that no, you have to do all these things, then of course that's a lot of process involving a lot of people to get a simple answer. So I'm okay with the motion, but I'm not sure it's the best way forward. So I'm gonna make the motion and see what the board thinks of it.
Okay, and seconded. Who else would like to speak? And I'll jump in, and then Director Powell. So my understanding is when they were doing their major renovations, which were initiated this year, I believe in the spring, the roof, I believe, was part of their overall capital renovations. And I do believe that the $125,000 is part of their original ask. It's just a much smaller amount than the 500,000. And what is it? What is it? A minister said to me, "Don't let perfect be the enemy of good." I don't think this is the perfect motion, but so far I haven't found the best one. So, Director Powell, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I have two comments on this. I like Director Brander. I also have concerns that they're not asking to be designated like this, and I can speak from when the Last Resort Society, when the Delyth Fisher Center became a designated health facility, it had the plus point that the hospital district was able to give a fair amount of money. They could complete their capital cost, get the project up and running. But it comes with strings attached, and they weren't able to do certain things that they had imagined doing because of the requirements of being a designated health facility. So it's not without strings attached. And so I can understand from the motion that that's the intent of the phrase "for the sole purpose of enabling." And so I don't mind passing this motion, although I would have serious doubts that the province would respond positively. So I don't mind going along with this, but I do think they can't make exceptions to statute. I mean, Section 49 of the Hospital Act says what it says, and this is what a designated health facility is. There's no, unless it says except if the minister gives some exceptions. Now, maybe there's a way around. Maybe the minister can find a way, because our intent, and maybe if we're going to do this, we should really say, explain why are we doing this. If we send a letter, we're doing this because what we want to do is cover the cost of the roof of our building, and we seem to be having these barriers, and so this seems to be a way around it, but we don't want to have all these other strings. So I guess the second part is a question for through the chair for Ms. Greenan, if I might. If we were able, imagine a future project like that, if this situation would arise in the future, if Miklat had come to us before the roof, would they have been able to, would it have been possible for us to do what Director Lennox and Louis were talking about, that basically we would take that on and just fix the roof of our building? Would that have been an alternate? Would that be an alternate approach in a future renovation of this kind?
A very good question. Through the chair, Linda Greenan.
Thank you, Chair, through the chair. Yes, if they had come to us before, then the board could have made the decision that we want, just like any other asset, you want to maintain it and repair it. So if they had come to us before, then we could have made the decision like, oh, okay, we do need to repair that building, and then we might have replaced the roof. It's just that now that it's done, now it becomes a grant to reimburse them for the roof, we can no longer do the work ourselves or make the decision to do the work ourselves or how it's done, and we can't go through the proper procurement process.
Thank you. And if I might have a brief follow-up, Chair, which is just that the, so I don't mind this going forward. We can ask. I would not be surprised if the ministry just says, no, it's an all or nothing deal. What do you want? In which case, we at least need to communicate to Miklat in the future. If there's something that rolls into a project that seems to be about the exterior of the building in particular, come to us first. And maybe we dropped the ball, we didn't understand enough, or they did a bit, but I think really we need to just set that up so that they can know we're open to helping. It's our building, but if we do it up front, we can do it and we don't get caught in this kind of statute quagmire that we're talking about here. Thank you.
Completely agree. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That's 3 opposed, and I didn't see Director Louis' hand, and I guess I'm in favor. So he's trying to.
He'll talk to us in a minute here.
Oh.
I'm unfortunately opposed.
Okay, so that is 4 opposed. So that does not pass. Okay, Director Southcott.
Question: can we make another motion to just for the second paragraph of that motion and not the first one? I guess what should have happened was should have been separated. Hey?
In that case,
I don't think we can, because without trying to become a facility, I don't think we can give them any money.
As per what Councillor or Director Paul was.
Yeah, that would have been God, see, this is where it's so challenging. We can't.
That's why we needed both parts.
We can't copy and paste from another regional hospital district. We're kind of learning here. First time flyer.
We could clarify with staff if that's the case, though. Like, maybe we can do a grant after the fact just because it's our asset, but I don't think we are allowed to.
Okay. Now with that, I'm going to move on unless someone else has a different motion. Okay, going on to another item of unfinished business, 4.2, board procedure bylaw, the big one that we've all been waiting for. We are on item 5, agenda approval for publication. Who would like to jump in on this one first? No, switching gears here.
Yeah.
What number are we on? Sorry.
5.
So, item 5.
Page 5 of 33 in our.
Well, I'll jump in on this one. I was actually one of the individuals that gave feedback in relation to Chair's approval for agenda prior to publication. Keep in mind, we are now going to be electing a vice chair, and hearing the comments from our staff, I think it's a really good idea to have the chair give the approval prior to publication, or the vice chair, but we could even have a clause in there that if they don't hear back from either of them within a certain amount of time, it gets approved anyways. And I'll give my reasoning for it. I've looked at some other regional districts, I've looked at some municipalities, and at the end of the day, when we start our meeting, the first thing we do is we approve the agenda and we vote on it. It's a political document, and where things go on the agenda is up to the assembly. And sometimes something will appear on, say, a public agenda, and maybe the directors go, well, this should actually be an in-camera item. And that comes down to splitting hairs. And I don't want elected officials to be directing, their displeasure at where something shows up on an agenda at our staff. If something shows up on an agenda and a director goes, why is this on an agenda, or why is this on the public agenda? The directors should take it to their chair. And at the same time, I don't want it to become a bottleneck. And if, say, a chair exercises their authority to say, hey, there's something that's being put on the agenda and maybe it's half cooked, or maybe it doesn't really fit the rules of order for the agenda, and the chair wants to remove it from the agenda prior to publication, there should be a clause in there that says the chair has to inform the assembly if they were to do so. And the reason for it is sometimes a director, not saying it happens here, right? Sometimes in a municipality or a regional district, a director or a counselor might put a motion on the agenda that is really contentious. And sometimes I hear of a mayor that goes, hey, I'm actually removing that from the agenda prior to publication, and then the mayor has to go and talk to that individual that it was really out of line for what was going on there. We haven't had that, but it could happen. And ultimately, the benefit of a regional district is that the chair is answerable to the assembly. It's very different from municipal councils where the chair or the mayor is voted in by the public, and maybe the council doesn't actually like the job that the mayor is doing. I'm not talking about our own local council, just in general. Whereas here, if I do something wrong, I have to answer to this assembly.
We can fire you.
Yes. And it's essentially the reason why I think it's a good idea to have the chair kind of being that kind of backstop in case there's something that's objectionable, something that's challenging, maybe something that should actually be on the in-camera. As a director might say, hey, this should be on a public agenda, and the chair looks at it and goes, that's actually going to be an in-camera item. And then the chair notifies the assembly, and then they say, yeah, we're approving this agenda. Because keep in mind, nothing stops members of the assembly from trying to add something to the agenda at time of adoption. When we go to adopt the agenda, the assembly owns it. We collectively own it. This is just about, it gets approved for publication. That's my thoughts. Director Elliott.
In the interest of not being a bottleneck, I think what you're looking for is the opportunity to approve, but at a certain time, if you haven't had your feedback or comments, the agenda still has to get published, right? So I don't think it requires approval, but should have opportunity for approval. And so that's what you're looking for, I think. And then if you're good with it, you have no comment, it goes forward and gets published. If you're not, and you do have comment, you have that opportunity before it gets published. And I think that's slightly different in how you word it, as far as allowing processes to move forward with or without your input. But that opportunity is kind of what you're looking for, in my opinion.
Okay, we got speakers coming up. This is wonderful. Okay, Lennox and then Southcott.
Thanks, Chair. Just along the same lines there, reading this item number 5, I guess I'll speak personally, planning, I'm the chair of planning, and so for me, it's not about approval, right? I guess along the same discussion lines, I'm not looking to say yay or nay, but I'm just looking to have a review. I guess review might be a better term. I guess my question is, we have a policy or a best practice on that timing? Because certain points in our calendar get very tight for our staff, and so I'm not disparaging them at all. I'm just wondering, are we looking for that like X number of hours or day or 2 that type of thing to allow the chair to just have a look? And as has been stated, if you're too busy, you're too busy, and it gets published. So I think for me, that's where my head's at. As far as the intent of what we're getting at here, it's not approval in my mind, it's review so you can get it right, maybe recognize some improvements. So
Corporate officer, sorry.
What Director Lennox has just suggested is supported by Robert's rules. It's important for the chair to have the agenda so that they can plan how the meeting's going to go. So our procedure bylaw does allow for the outline to go out prior to publication. Staff have been trying to get the full agenda to you well before the deadline. And so that public, when it comes to, getting the whole agenda out to everyone or sending the outline to the chair and then delaying for 3 days. There's been a few times where staff have prioritized getting it out to everyone. And I think that might be the issue here. But what we'll see is a difference in the timeliness of the whole board getting the complete agenda. That's all. That it just means delaying when you get your agenda. You know, we can do it this way. I don't know that we have the capacity to text and phone to make sure somebody has read their email. If we do that, we will be submitting funding.
Workload.
Yeah. So that's what that would look like. We have, you know, hundreds of agendas going out every year and several different chairs. So, but when
That's where I was getting at. It's an opportunity. If you've heard nothing, you don't have to chase them down. Just move forward. But, yeah, that's where I was getting at. You don't want staff chasing people down to see if they're happy with the agenda.
You good, Director Lennox?
For now.
Director Southcott and then Director Brander.
Yeah, thank you. I support this recommendation because I reflect on previous practice that actually works, and that is where the relationship is functional and we all understand. I hope I'm not just repeating what you're saying. Maybe I've thought about this quite a bit. My basic point, really, I believe, is that we can't fix relationships through policy, and relationships are based on trust. It doesn't matter how badly things might work, if they're not going to work better until we get back to that. That's my belief. So that's why I support this, and the focus really needs to be on figuring out how to work together in increasingly challenging times where, you know, the challenge is if we let them come between us, then that's a failure. So that's why I support this recommendation. We really need to make it work between us. That's the bottom line for me.
The only thing I don't...
Hold on.
I know it's hard.
Director Brander.
I'm actually not in support of this in general. I like Director Lennox's comment that instead of approval just for review, I think you used that term.
One word for it, yep.
Yeah, and you know, the concept of having comments on the draft agenda, I don't think that's unreasonable. But to expect one individual on this board to be deciding if it's approved or if it's not approved, I don't really care for that. And then the calling or texting, I think that would just be an undue burden on staff, because I think we're all responsible individuals here. We should be checking our email on a regular basis anyways. So you know, sometimes you call or you text, you might not get a response, but I still think it takes time to send those things out. So having a 24 hours in which to review the agenda, fine. You can make comments on the agenda to staff, but sometimes staff puts items on the agenda because it needs to be on there. I don't want to have one individual have the freedom to take things off if they're required. And I don't think calling or texting is necessary.
Director Fall?
Thank you, Chair. I concur with a lot of the comments by Director Brander. I think this review idea, besides deciding, I mean, it says right in the package under Robert's Rules of Order, no single member has exclusive authority. So I think we do not want to put that authority in anything. It's not appropriate. The chair is one of us, elected by us, and yes, we can recall a chair, but I don't think that voting in a chair gives any decision-making power over the agenda. That's not what that's about. I think having a review, and I am very, I do not want to add any extra workload for staff. So I certainly think, the building into a policy calling or texting, I think really if we have an idea of when to expect things, it's up to us to check enough. I think we're capable of doing that. I think adding, staff have 200 agenda. I sympathize with staff, 200 plus agendas. I don't, it's a crazy amount. It's always several on the go. So I think keeping track of that. Also, there's the delay. So, I'd be concerned about things that might cause a delay one way or the other, like a delay to require the agenda to be finished a day or two earlier so that this review could happen may cause problems, because now we're asking the public and other directors, but say the public, they get their we're backing things up before things can get on the agenda. Or if we delay when when the rest of the committee gets it or the board gets it, that's a challenge too, because if the agenda is finished, I want to get it as soon as possible. These agendas are massive, and I don't want to lose a day while the chair reviews it on any of our committees or boards or assemblies. So I think, maybe one of the solutions could be, in a small tweak, because I understand the concern here, could be, when it gets put on the public, so as soon as the agenda is ready, I think, I like the idea, and I get it as chair of finance, like when the text, the main outline of the agenda gets sent to me, and I can look at it, and if I don't look in time, it's good. And if I look in time, it's almost always good anyways, but it does, give an opportunity for feedback, and the chair getting a little early glimpse is a good thing when the cover page is ready. When the full package is ready, I think the whole assembly should get it as soon as possible so that we can see it. And then if any one of us have a concern about the in-camera stuff, that's a different story. I think any of us could say, hey, that's this item, X point, whatever, seems like an in-camera thing. Is that true because of da-da-da? Well, then that can be put out before it gets on the public. So I think the issue is when it gets put on the public, So, that's maybe something that could be worked in, that maybe when an agenda is ready, the assembly has it 12 hours or the day before or whatever, it gets put on the web page. On the same token, the web page is where we get it from. So that would cause, I can always already see there's a flaw in what I'm saying because that's where we get it from. So I don't know if that even works. So I do think having maybe a bit more consistency of when the cover page goes out to the chair, but otherwise I think the current process is a reasonable balance between the workload. We do not want to add more workload on staff or add delays on either us or getting things on the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
And Director Elliott.
The only part of the recommendation under item 5 that I think is maybe not, that I would change the wording on, is the part that says for information only. It seems to prohibit comment or change based on what the chair might notice. And so I think we could word that better, but essentially I'm happy with the process. And I think if we're sending something out ahead of time, comment and or review should be possible, and collaboration on maybe making a change based on what you're noticing. So only sounds, information only sounds very prescriptive, and I wouldn't use those words. Yeah.
Corporate officer.
Thank you. With this recommendation, nothing is needed to be said. Like, you guys don't have, if you guys want to maintain the current process, but providing advance is for information sharing and receiving feedback and planning purposes, like under Robert's rules. So I agree, that might seem like there is,
the wording's harsh. Yeah.
There's more to it than that. It is for the purposes of planning. And I do want to say, through the chair, if that's possible, if there's ever a time that you feel like something should be in camera and it's on an open, or you're thinking you want to discuss it, that's a very simple conversation. Like, with any member, not just the chair.
So I guess my point is that the motion on the agenda is too much, and we could change it to the motion that was the recommendation in the package. If we if we change the wording to maybe review and comment, or for purposes of planning, would be great. But the chair was interested in having like a specified amount of time before it goes public to allow for that opportunity. And so is the 24 hours problematic?
Through the chair, it would be up to you to determine if it's problematic. That requires us to work on the weekend. That requires you to pay the overtime, or the boys to pay the overtime. But it's up to you. It would be determined if it's problematic for you, because it just delays how quickly you get your agendas by adding 24 hours to the process.
So for example, we publish Fridays, we would then have to publish Mondays, or?
Yeah. Thank you, through the chair. So you might have seen that we sent outlines for the board and the finance to the chairs on Friday, and then we published those today. So
Okay.
now you're going to consider those in 2 days. And if that's suitable for you guys, then
Director Southcott, I believe, has a question of clarification, but I think I saw someone's hand on the screen. Okay, Director McCormick is. Are you able to hold on, Director Southcott?
Sure.
Okay, Director McCormick, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As a committee chair, I'm not unhappy with the way we do things now. In fact, I think I would prefer to keep it that way. Even if we changed it to give the chair the authority to approve the agenda, the real authority doesn't happen until the actual meeting when the board itself or the committee itself approves the agenda before us. Until then, it's really only a draft agenda anyway. So, you know, I think we're best just to leave things. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It seems to be working okay. I appreciate the opportunity to review the agenda. I know if there, you know, I then know if there's extra work that I would need to do on the background of a particular issue or whatever. But I think we should just leave it the way it is. It's working. Let's not fix what ain't broke. That's my thought.
Okay, thank you, Director McCormick. Director Southcott, you got something burning.
Yeah, I certainly do. So my comments with regard to the motion I thought I was commenting on were actually to do with the recommendation in the report under item 5. So I don't think my comment should have made any sense at all, because basically I support the way we are doing it, and I respect that, particularly at this time, our acting CAO is corporate officer as well, and we're like stretched. You are stretched to the max. I can hardly appreciate how you can do both of these jobs. So I absolutely can't expect any more, zero more expectation on you, particularly, but staff in general. It's my position. So I don't support the recommendation under 4.2, but I do support the recommendation in the report under item 5, which they don't jive. They're different. They're the opposite, actually, as I read it.
Okay. I think I understand.
Wish I could make myself clearer. Really
Sorry. Okay, I'll give myself a second kick at this can. The reason why I thought that this was kind of important, I've seen some of the issues at the other regional districts I mentioned, seen some issues at municipalities, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I have here our board procedure bylaw before we amended it in, I believe, 2019, 2020. 4.20. Prior to each board meeting, the office of the corporate officer shall prepare an agenda setting out all the items for consideration at that meeting, and the chair shall review and approve the agenda prior to its publication. That's the language our procedure bylaw used to have, and we changed it about 5-6 years ago. That's what I'm asking for. But that's what I think. I liked the way the agenda, the procedure bylaw used to put that responsibility on the chair. So that way, when things went a little sideways, members of the public, members of the board, if they had displeasure, they would direct it at the chair, not our staff. Right now, when something gets published on the agenda, people are upset. It becomes a challenge. That's just what I'm trying to avoid. However, I'm a servant of the assembly, and if the assembly wishes to leave it as is, then we can leave it as is. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else. Now, I guess we don't require any action if we're not going to do anything.
That works, yeah.
Okay, we're moving on to item 6, delegation procedures. Who would like to start on this one? How we do late delegations? Corporate officer.
Thank you. If I may, Chair, through the chair. This was a request or a suggestion from a member of the Assembly, but it was also flagged as an important thing for staff as well. One thing that we have come across is people seeing what's on the agenda and wanting to come speak to it. And our code of conduct policy it speaks to us sharing information as timely as possible. And so that sort of delay of knowing that we're going to have a delegation come unregistered and then not being able to share that information with you, this would allow sort of have a time stop of when that would be allowed. And we would be able to get that information on the agenda for you guys to consider. So that is why we're putting it here.
Director Lennox.
Thanks, Chair. I think I know the answer to this question, but that doesn't preclude us from accepting unregistered delegations, does it?
No, it would just give us a timeline to be able to stop putting things on the agenda.
Very good, thanks.
Director Fall.
Thank you, Chair. I want to hear from others, but I'm actually happy with the suggested motion in the agenda. I can totally see this because, you know, we get sometimes we know ahead of time. It's nice to see the regular delegations. On the other hand, we just talked about delays and so on with our agendas, and the agendas come out and someone sees it and they go, hey, there's my hot item. I want to show up. And if they know they're going to show up and we already know 24 hours ahead that they're going to be an unregistered delegation, well, why not give us a heads up and have, you know, already then we can plan, because if there's another unregistered delegation, we could start managing our time a bit better, because who was first and how many can we handle and how much food do we need to pile up beside our desks in our home offices before the meeting starts. So I think this is a good idea. I think, you know, and I guess the only question I would have through the chair, if I might, to our corporate officers, would this suggested motion, would it add, you know, substantial extra work for staff? Because that's, you know, one of my number one concerns here. But would this be a lot of extra work, or is it just, you know, pass through, you know, a few extra emails?
Thank you, through the chair. I would have to put it into practice to really understand, but right now what we're doing is like receiving emails, emailing the chair, emailing staff. If we could just add it to an agenda and, you know, share it to the whole board, hey, this is going to happen, it might actually minimize some work, but I don't want to commit to that.
Yeah. Who else? Oh, Director Brander.
Well, seeing no other hands, I'll make the motion in the package.
So moved by Director Brander, seconded by Director McCormick. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question.
Director McCormick has her hand up.
Director McCormick, go ahead.
I just want to be clear that this motion does not prevent unregistered delegations from showing up and having an opportunity to speak at committee or board level. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
That's been clarified. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Elliott?
Do we have a limit to the amount of unregistered delegations we can have?
Through the chair?
Thank you. Through the chair, the procedure bylaw doesn't limit a number of delegations. It does provide this assembly the authority to limit the time frame for unregistered delegations.
And overall, or?
And overall, no, we haven't had a limit of it. That is an item but we do often have meetings where we have like several 15, 20 delegations specifically around grants and aid. So
those would be people registered. That's different than unregistered. So if we had a controversial topic on our agenda and we had 25 people show up for the unregistered delegates, would we have to listen to all 25?
No, I don't believe so. Corporate officer.
Well, I just after hearing, thank you through the chair. After hearing registered delegations, the chair, with the agreement of the majority of other members, will grant individuals or groups not listed on the agenda an opportunity to address the board or committee. And after establishing how many such delegations are present, the chair will allot such time to each as considered appropriate. So that provides the authority to the assembly, to the majority of the assembly, to hear the delegations.
Or not.
Or not
Or
here.
not here.
And if I could go further, at a corporate officers event, we did discuss how to do, when there were lots and lots, and lots of times the assembly will say, we'll hear 3 from pros and 3 from against.
Like a pro and con mic.
And you'll be limited to this much time. So if that were to happen,
We could do that.
yes.
Yeah.
All right,
Good
thanks.
information. Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None. That is carried. Okay, seating arrangements. Ooh, I like this one. It's seating arrangements.
I'll move the recommended motion.
I'll second it.
Yeah, moved and seconded. So moved by Director Fall, seconded by Director Brenner. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None. That is carried. Item number 8, discussion before a motion is on the floor. Director Brander.
We adopted this practice recently, and I think it's good. I think it's not always necessary, but I think in many cases it's been beneficial. But I think what we need to do is really establish some hard and fast limits, so that we don't get mired down in the discussions beforehand. Because oftentimes we can just go on and on and on, and there doesn't seem to be an ending place. And also, when we are not actually discussing or debating a motion, I'm not even sure where the rules stand as far as, say, calling points of order because of repeated comments or anything like that. So I would like to see some sort of limitations placed on it. You know, when I've been in the chair position, when we've gotten to those cases, I usually try to say, okay, we can go around, we're going to get a maximum of 2 minutes per person to state your comments or ask questions, that kind of thing.
And through the chair, corporate officer.
Thank you, Chair. I prepared this report prior to us really delving into the discussion, and I had thought that process of allowing everybody to have 2 minutes each was flexible. So that's more than the 10 minutes that's established in here. So that might be something that the board might want to consider, because at this assembly we have 8 members, so that would be 16 minutes, but at some we have 4 members, so that would be 8 minutes. Did I do the math correct there? Yes. So perhaps that might be
Potentially. Director Lennox.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and I appreciate the comments of the corporate officer, depending on how many numbers of people. It has been effective for me to have the discussion before the actual motions, and almost every time, each one of us has something valuable to say. So I'd hate to kind of pigeonhole us into 10 minutes and then not allow that flexibility. So 2 minutes is probably a good target, but I think the chair ultimately maintains the role of chair, and as Director Branner and others have said, needs to use points of order and keep us in line with the topic at hand. So that's what I'm looking for, is time for everybody to have, at least one crack at some questions. I think we've been doing quite well as a group doing that, and it helps me to understand once we get into the actual motion. Thanks.
Okay, I've got Director Paul, and then I've got Director McCormick.
Thank you, Chair. I concur with what Director Lennox just said. I think, maybe having, say 2 minutes per person, as the corporate officer suggested, might be a good way, because then if you have, here we have 7 or 8, I should say, and, normally we have 7, but if only 5 are there, it's just, and I think I really like how we've been using this. It's obviously, it says, by, unanimous agreement. So, it's not for every agenda item. We wouldn't want to do this for every agenda, doing this for the minutes or something. My God, we'd be here forever. But, when we get a complex thing, and especially when we have an item that we do not know what the right motion is, we don't know, it's kind of a straw poll opportunity, an opportunity to get ideas out there and then identify which direction we really kind of want to go before. So I think if we provide a bit more structure here, then I think it might help us hone that so that we really use that time efficiently to avoid going into debate. If we know there's a limited time, we'll avoid going into debate, we'll avoid going off track, and we'll use it to say, let's get our ideas out there to be able to express what do we want to actually get on the table so we can move as quickly as possible to having a motion on the table, so that then we can talk constructively, but not doing that prematurely, which is what this is trying to avoid. This opportunity would avoid premature motions that we go around and around and then, you know, withdraw or vote down until we figure out. So I think it's a good idea doing something like this.
Okay, I've got a speakers list here. Next is Director McCormick, then Director Elliott, then myself, and then Director Southcott. Anyone else I've missed? I'm seeing I haven't missed anyone. Okay, Director McCormick, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, and I agree with the suggested motion in the package. I think supporting what Director Brander said, we've been doing this for a while. It seems to be working quite well. Some issues we want the 10 minutes. Sometimes we ask the board if the chair feels more discussion is needed, ask the board can we have another 10 minutes? And pretty much everyone, you know, agrees. I haven't seen anyone not agree to that. So I think what we're doing works well. It's good to formalize it in our procedure bylaw so that it's recognized as the way we do things. And I definitely support this recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Director Elliott, go ahead.
I agree with Director Lennox, and I'm going to make a motion. I move that the board direct staff to prepare an amendment to the procedure bylaw to include a clause permitting general discussion by unanimous agreement at the onset of introducing an agenda item.
Okay, so moved. Seconded by Director Lennox. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Director Lennox.
Yeah, just quickly, and to the points that I made, Director McCormick said it well. It is working, and I think that this is not a closed motion. This allows the chair and the body to agree, which we usually do. And if we don't, then we don't. So I think that's a logical motion, and it allows that flexibility.
Thank you. Director Southcott.
Thank you. Just to be clear, this is the suggested motion minus the words up to 10 minutes of, correct?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I see Director Brander and then Director Fallen. Did I see Director Louis' hand? Okay, yeah. So Director Brander, then Director Fall, then Director. So go ahead, Director Brander.
Yeah, I mean, taking out the permitted up to 10 minutes kind of, I think it takes a lot of the meat out of this motion, because I think having the, you know, like I suggested, the 2 minutes per director, it focuses us. It is a more efficient use of the time, and it really encourages people to be concise. By saying we have up to 2 minutes per person, it does not preclude us from doing a second round if we so choose. But it's just whenever you have that timer going, you really try to get your information out as quickly and concisely as possible. And well, I think it was Elimina who said something along the lines of, if you can't get it out, you know, in 2 minutes, you've gone beyond what you should be saying. So I would like to have an amendment in there that says 2 minutes per individual. Like I said, that doesn't keep us from not extending it another time if we feel that it's necessary, but it requires a board decision to do so. If we just leave it open to discussion, then anybody can just go on for any length of time that they choose so. And then that's when we get mired down in having half-hour or 45-minute discussions prior to a motion even being made. I would prefer to have a set amount of time. If we have board support, we can extend that for another 2 minutes per individual, and then we get to a motion. And I think that encourages us to get to a motion faster and get to the debate faster. So I would propose an amendment to this that would say 2 minutes per director.
Is that being moved?
Sure. Well, I'll move it. Yeah.
And is there a seconder?
I'll second that. Yep.
Okay, moved by Director Brander, seconded by Director Lennox to amend to include 2 minutes. You've already spoken to the amendment, I think. Yeah, I see a bunch of hands going up. I'm going to go, let's see, Director McCormick, then Director Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. I don't support the 2 minutes. I do support the up to 10 minutes of overall discussion. I think trying to time 2 minutes per person is going to become a whole lot of work for someone who operates the timer, and it's going to create more work for staff than simply the 10 minutes as we have been doing by common practice. So, Chair, I'd like to move to amend the amendment, and that is to, instead of 2 minutes per member, say up to 10 minutes.
Okay, so you're moving to amend the amendment from 2 to 10.
From 2 minutes per member to 10 minutes of discussion, the way it was in the suggested recommendation.
Okay, we have an amendment to an amendment. I believe that's allowed under Robert's rules, as much as I can probably see our corporate officer developing a headache. Okay, so that's moved by Director McCormick. Did we have a seconder? I'm not seeing a seconder. Okay, without a seconder, it's not before the assembly. Okay, so we're back to the original amendment, which is 2 minutes. And Director McCormick, do you have anything else with your time?
My only concern about 2 minutes per person is that it's going to make much more work for staff in working the timer and signaling to the chair when that person has reached their 2 minutes, and then it's more work for the chair as well. Allowing 10 minutes makes it far more general. Not everyone wants to speak. Not everyone will take 2 minutes, but leaving it open enables the discussion to happen as it's meant to, rather than restricting it or confining it to 2 minutes. I don't think that's the right thing to do, although I do like having discussion prior to the motions.
Thank you, Director McCormick. Now, I'm just taking a look at my speakers list. We had a speakers list before we had the amendment to the motion on the floor. I recognize Director Elliott is next and Director Fall is next, but I do recall Director Louie having his hand up before we got like the motion and the amendment. And I'm just wondering if Director Louie would like to reassert his time at this time. To the amendment, that is.
Just trying to understand where we're at right now. No, I think where my thoughts were was just in favor of structure around the time that we spend discussion and debating, because if I like to come into these meetings with a wholesome understanding of how much time we're going to be spending in total too, right? And we've been talking about planning, and agenda is a big part of the planning for the meeting. And we're opening and we're closing that 24 hours prior, but we're still leaving room available for delegates to come in. I'd rather have more definition around what we're doing in internally with the procedure than and keeping that quite open, but like restricted too, just so that we can just continue to be efficient. It's just a comment, sorry.
No, thank you. Okay, now back to the original speakers list. Director Elliott, and then we'll have Director Fall. Go ahead.
Thank you. So if we're going to put use words like permit up to 10 minutes or permit 2 minutes per person, when it comes to the part around unanimous agreement, should we not also say extendable by unanimous consent? Because if you don't provide that, then you remove all of your flexibility to make a new decision about that. Or if you do ask for unanimous consent and everybody agrees and you go over time, you're actually against your own procedure bylaw because it wasn't permitted. And so if you didn't have the time in there in the first place, it wouldn't be necessary. But because you've recommended a time limit be by unanimous agreement, then you're no longer saying that the general discussion is by unanimous agreement. You're also going to need any flexibility around that timing to be by unanimous agreement as well. And so that's my comment is I wouldn't vote for this the way it is, because it can put the board in a position on complex issues that require more discussion in the position of breaching their own procedure bylaws if they want to go longer than the 2 minutes per person. And general discussion often includes questions where people are trying to gather understanding of what the thing is. And sometimes that's very simple and it doesn't need to be long and we should shut up. Other times it's complicated, we don't know the answers.
Good feedback. Director Fall.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I have several thoughts, but I agree with what the Director Elliott said. I think, I like the structure. I recognize that, maybe the 2 minutes may provide a little bit, splitting some hairs. On the other hand, sometimes if we just say 10 minutes, then, one member speaks for 6 minutes and then the other ones are, short. So if we're going to put a time limit, I think we need to be kind of clear. I was going to suggest something a little more general, which is just with a specified time frame by unanimous agreement. But I also see Director Brander's comments that, then it's too open-ended. So I think giving a specific amount of time is a good balance, as Director Louis mentioned, but I think having the ability to extend it by unanimous consent so that we can say, okay, 2 minutes around, that wasn't enough, let's do it again. And we've done that already. So I think that's really just codifying what we're actually already doing in practice. So I think if we could, I know that will require another
Friendly amendment to
another amendment, but I'd just like to express support for adding that explicitly in there, because we do that anyways, and we have done it, and I expect we'll continue to do it. But by unanimous consent, I mean, even the 2 minutes, it's by unanimous consent. That puts it at the, any individual on the assembly can say enough. We can't go for the 8th time. So I think having that in there, the unanimous consent clause, really makes it that, this is all done by consensus.
Hey, and I think I saw Director Elliott wanting to move an amendment to the amendment to include this clause.
Well, I heard Director Fall ask for the amendment. I was seconding what Director Fall.
Okay, then it's moved by Director Fall and seconded by Director Elliott with the amendment to the amendment. And I'm also going to rule that it's in order, because I do believe it ties very much into the 2 minutes and the per member clause. Okay, not going to see any discussion on the amendment to the amendment, so I'm going to call the question. All in favor of amending the amendment? Any opposed? Okay, then that's carried. Okay, now the amendment is 2 minutes per member, and which can be extended by unanimous agreement. Okay, I'm actually next on the speakers list, and is there anyone else before I get going? Okay, wait. Oh, here's my notes. My speakers list is getting out of control here.
Are you speaking to the amendment now?
I am speaking to the amendment. I'm kind of torn. 2 minutes can be a bit short. 10 minutes could be too much, but we're not talking about 10 minutes. The reason why I'm a little torn is I'm starting to actually get back on track with my brain, because as you recall earlier today, we had this discussion around healthcare facilities, and that is not a simple problem to fix. And sometimes an issue will come up at the assembly where, say, it's Lund water.
Don't say there. No.
And I could see something on Texada or something in Lund where the individual director wants to provide the information to the assembly so that the assembly has the full understanding. I've heard a lot of good information from the director from Lesquiti, because Lesquiti they're always, creating new and creative pathways, and sometimes it takes a bit for me to actually understand what they're talking about. And 2 minutes for everyone, I think, makes sense if we're talking about something that's regional in nature and equally affects all of us. But we got to remember that sometimes issues will come up that are very specific to one area, and maybe to say, okay, director, you only got 2 minutes to kind of give that preamble of the issue that you're facing in your area. And that might also be a bit of a problem in terms of fairness, because keep in mind that a delegation can come in and they get 10 minutes. So that's where I can have a bit of a challenge in my mind, is a delegation can come in, give the information to the assembly that they're running into with 10 minutes, but a director who wants to speak to an item that they put on the agenda really only gets 2. I kind of like the flexibility, but at the same time, I think we should all be using our restraint and discretion to kind of keep our comments a bit more concise. Here I am not actually picking a side on this one. I'm a little bit opposed to it, but at the same time, hospital district makes sense, 2 minutes. But if we're getting into an issue where something is specific to, say, Avery Island, maybe the director from Area A wants to talk a bit more than 2 minutes. That's it for me. Director Fall.
Thank you, Chair. I think the clause, which can be extended by unanimous agreement, resolves that a bit. I think in most cases, you just go into a round of 2 minutes and everyone has to get it out quickly and be efficient, and it's all on us to be quick. But in an example where it's obvious, usually it's obvious there's an issue where one director has a lot to say and it's going to be clear that they're the ones expressing. It doesn't, the amendment, that clause of extending doesn't say it has to be after everyone's had 2 minutes. It could be, but it's really where the chair would say, the timer would go up, chair would have to intervene and say, is everyone okay letting director so-and-so, Director Lennox, talk about, I won't use names, but is it okay to give the director another 2 minutes? Okay, because they have a lot to say, and then it's just a couple seconds, and then on we go. And then is everyone okay to give the director another 2 minutes? And I think that just gives it a check-in, because it gives a reminder to the person who does have a lot to say that you've already asked for 2 or 3 extra extensions. Wrap it up. Be efficient. But so I think it builds into that. You could either do 2 minutes per person the whole round, or the chair could offer that if it's a case where the director obviously has more to say, with a bit of pressure on them to be concise. So I think it solves that in my mind.
And the assembly can also say,
hold on,
I've had enough.
I have a question for our corporate officer. If this motion passes as amended, and say a director comes in and says, hey, I've got this really burning issue and it's going to take me 10 minutes to get through, could the assembly say, hey, we're going to give that individual 10 minutes? Or do we have to stop them every 2 minutes and say, hey, is it okay with the assembly to give them another 2 minutes?
So yes, I mean, the way I interpret it is that the norm would be 2 minutes, but that last one says which can be extended by unanimous agreement, and that would be up to the membership, and they would have to unanimously agree.
Okay, so yeah, reading the amendment says which can be extended by unanimous agreement, but it doesn't say how much it can be extended. So the assembly might say, you know what, we're going to give you an extra 5, or we'll give you an extra 10. In that case, I'm actually happy with it. So thank you for those comments, Director Fall.
Louis has to leave at 4 o'clock.
Director Louis has to leave at 4 o'clock, so let's get moving.
Director McCormick also.
Let's vote.
Okay, let's vote. Okay, voting on the amendment. All in favor? Any opposed? None, that's carried. Okay, back to the main motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Oh, Director McCormick, you trying to talk? Main motion, go ahead.
Thank you. And my discussion is again to say that I think it's going to be very unwieldy to time 2 minutes per person. Is this going to be up to the corporate officer, who's usually the one that tells me when we've reached 10 minutes and gives me that nudge in the ribs, time to ask people's permission? And she's totally right. But are we going to expect that to happen every 2 minutes now?
I'll give my brief answer. I think it's the responsibility of the chair to try and keep track. But are we going to be requiring staff to block a timer on us?
Thank you through the chair. The program we use for the timer, is very easy. We just hit a button, and it will the one that flashes yellow and then goes red, that's automatic. So the chair can use that to guide them, I'm guessing.
Okay, now on to the main. Oh, Director McCormick, go ahead.
Yeah, I just think it would be very unwieldy, in having to do that when you're in the middle of a heated discussion and a number of directors want to speak, and you're having to stop every 2 minutes to get, permission of the assembly for one person to continue. Maybe it will convince us to speak, less time. That would be probably a good thing, but I see it being very awkward as chair, and I really would prefer the 10-minute allotment that was recommended in the report.
Yeah. Thank you, Director McCormick. Okay, I'm going to call the question on the main motion as amended. All in favor? Any opposed? None, that is carried.
I had one opposed.
Oh, Director McCormick, were you opposed?
No, I was in favor, reluctantly.
Director Elliott?
I'm on item 9, limits to debate, and I wanted to make the motion in the suggested motion in the package.
That the board directs staff to prepare an amendment to the procedure bylaw to include a clause limiting speech to 5 minutes per occasion, no more than 2 occasions per question. Is that the motion you're moving?
Yes, sure.
Okay, moved by Director Elliott, seconded by Director Brander. We have discussion. Director Fall.
Just a question, by leave of the board, does that mean a majority of the board?
Good question. To our corporate officer.
Thank you. Typically that would be done by vote, or you guys could change the language. Yeah, typically that would be done by unanimous agreement or vote of the majority. So unanimous agreement, you can do that informally. Say, does everybody agree that the chair can speak 3 times to this? And if everybody agrees, you don't have to vote. But if one person doesn't agree, then you'd have to vote.
Okay, thanks.
Any other discussion? Yeah, I'll jump in on this one. Sorry. I'm actually opposed to this. The motion is that the directors will only get 2 opportunities to speak. You'll be able to speak to a maximum of 5 minutes for each of your 2 opportunities, and that's it. I'm opposed to that because quite often there's new information that comes up during a debate, and I think it really undermines what it is we're trying to do here of having open discussion. I actually like the idea of having maximum of 10 minutes per member per question, where someone might actually say, hey, I'm opposed to it because of this very simple thing. And they've only taken 30 seconds. Well, the next time they get to speak, they only get 5 minutes and only allowed to speak 1 more time. Sometimes people have more than 2 things to say. And as we go around, people's minds will change. I would have actually preferred a slightly different motion, which is that you get 10 minutes total. And whether it's 1 time to speak, 2 times to speak, 3 times to speak, it's greater flexibility. But saying you only get 2 chances to speak is not currently in our procedure bylaw. And I do actually like that it's pointed out here that it isn't in our procedure bylaw. But for those of you around the table, you might remember that I've been told that it's in our procedure bylaw for the last 7 years, and I keep saying it isn't. So now we're actually looking at cementing it in. So I'm actually opposed to this motion. Director Lennox.
Yep, thanks. Just simply, I'm also opposed to this motion. You mentioned one of the major points for me is when I listen to the other directors and staff and sometimes delegations, I come up with other questions that I think are valuable for all of us to consider. And I don't actually see us running into a problem very often. Usually it's because the topic is very complicated and we need to flesh it out. And I know it's painful to sit here for 3 hours and all the rest of it, but I don't really see a problem with most of our meetings. And once in a while, people call a point of order and say, okay, you've said your piece, and most of us are, yeah, actually you're right, and we move on. But I'm not a fan of this at all.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All in favor?
What are we voting on?
We're voting on the motion.
Is it?
Section 9, the suggested motion.
Yeah, we're voting on
The suggested motion.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, the suggested motion is that we amend the procedure bylaw to include a clause limiting speeches to 5 minutes per occasion, no more than 2 occasions per question, and no more than 10 minutes in aggregate.
Except by leave of the board,
Except
meaning
by
the
the-
board can decide differently depending on where they're at.
Which is a little odd when you say no more than 10 minutes in aggregate because you only got 2 chances to speak 5 minutes each. So that's what we're voting on. Do we understand? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? 2 opposed. Motion's carried. Okay, housekeeping. I don't think these require any action, do we?
These don't require action. I was just providing you guys these staff need to do these changes.
This is
If you want me to describe them, I can, but I know that we are limited by time and you've considered these before. So the next item that you would actually need to make a decision on is item 13.
Item 13. Wait, didn't we do 13 at the beginning?
Oh, maybe.
Which is where we send it to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did choose, and then we wanted to choose an option or what.
Yeah, we wanted
Good catch.
we wanted to make sure we were setting it to the right place before we
Yes. I'm able to just quickly look and make sure that we have made a decision on that.
Yes.
Because I do want to know for time purposes.
Let's take a little breather for our corporate officer to make sure that we're all going the right way.
Yeah, so thank you. We'll go to
Good
a
catch,
hospital.
Chair.
It's there. Thank you.
Okay, it's
we're good.
all there. Okay,
Are we done this item?
Yes.
I think we are. Look at that.
Congratulations, board. It was a lengthy one.
It was, and I know the healthcare facility designation was one that took up quite a bit of time at the beginning of our meeting, and it's something we've been bashing around. Sorry it took so long, my apologies. We are now going on to 4.2, but we already dealt with that with resolutions. We have none. Reports, we have none. Bylaws, we have none. New business, correspondence direction. The board directs staff to provide any correspondence, letters, or emails addressed to the chair or the board to be provided to the chair and all members of the board as reasonably as possible. Now, this motion is slightly different than the one I had originally intended based on board feedback. Director Elliott, go ahead.
I like the motion and I would make the motion.
Just 1 second.
Should we have a couple of questions first? Corporate officer.
May I just want to bring the board into awareness. I actually think you might want to tackle this a different way. We have a policy that deals with public communication and engagement, and it's a higher level directive of this assembly, and that's what gives staff the direction to do what they do. And so now it currently states if a correspondence goes to one director, if it's addressed to one director, it will go to that director. But if it is directed to the board, it will appear on an agenda. So if we want to change that practice and have staff forward that correspondence, we might need to address that policy. That's a policy change.
Policy of the board or the hospital board or the regular board or the regional board, sorry.
I mean, the hospital board follows the qathet regional district policy. That's how we build our agendas and everything. We follow that policy. So we wouldn't want to adopt a standalone resolution that provides different direction than the policy says.
Director Elliott?
So this is where the hospital district and the regular board may not have the same needs. And I say that because the hospital district doesn't meet as often as the regular board. And so if correspondence is waiting for an agenda, practically speaking, if it's the hospital board, it could really damage our ability to manage communications in the community and so forth. For example, if communications is coming from the ministry and being CC'd to our community partners, and we have no idea it's out there, it makes us look really, really stupid. And waiting for a hospital board meeting to show up months later is not practical. Whereas our regional board meetings are twice a month. That's not really an issue because the timeliness is always there. It's only an issue for the hospital. I don't like being at UBCM in the minute or anywhere, and we've received correspondence from people we ought to have known of. Our partners are asking about it and talking to us about it, and we don't even know the letters there. And that only happens at the hospital board. So I'm wondering if our needs at the hospital board are completely different than the regional board. In this instance, I think they are. Can we not have a hospital board difference? That's a question.
It's a question.
And I don't know if we need a whole new policy or if I don't want to have two separate policies, which is we already decided we don't really want to duplicate. But if our needs are different, how could we address that separately?
I think the issue we're trying to solve here is in relation to this letter.
Well, any correspondence that is CC'd to our community partners about hospital business, and we're on the board, is potentially a conversation where they have all the information and we don't. And so that could be when the board from the Vancouver Coastal Health comes and meets with us all the elected officials. It could be anything. Like, we have things going on that are not necessarily timed with our hospital board meetings.
The issue that resulted in this proposed motion is this letter was addressed September the 24th while we were at UBCM. We were meeting with the ministry staff, and I found out about this letter from Foundry after I had already come back to Powell River, and they had sent an email with a bunch of, you know, answers to the questions that are on the letter. And last month's finance committee, I asked, hey, there's a letter from the deputy minister. When do I get a copy of it? And I was told it's the regional district's policy not to give me the letter until it's published on an upcoming agenda. So that's the problem I think we're trying to solve, is when a letter is sent from, say, a deputy minister or any, you know, provincial agency or federal agency or any agency, how do we make sure that that information is getting to the chair and by extension the rest of the assembly in a timely manner? Because if I had gotten this at UBCM, I would have, of course, run up to the other hospital directors and said, hey, look what we got work to do. But under the regional district's policy, this would not have been brought before me until like 3 weeks later. I think that's the issue that we're ultimately trying to solve here.
Well, I was trying to solve issues at the community forest similarly about money, and representing all the information I knew at the time in those meetings, and I was short on information. And I had people asking me stuff about something I knew nothing about. And it's really uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Director Fall and then Director Lennox.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to pick up on something our corporate officer said. We have a policy on public communication and engagement, and I think that's the place. I agree completely. That's the place to look. And I have a couple, 3, I guess, lines of thoughts on this. One is it's about timeliness. So, you know, it's not so much about the board. The board and the hospital district can have the same policy, but it's about timeliness. Like, maybe a change could be made to say, if the next meeting is not, if the next meeting's within the next week or 2 weeks or some time frame, just follow what we've been doing. And if it's beyond that, well, then maybe there's an exception, and that would apply to both. It's just, it would never come up with the board. It doesn't need a separate policy. But I do think there's also different kinds of information, which is, I don't think it helps our transparency if letters addressed to the chair or the board from the public all just show up in our email box. I mean, so that's, we've got them, but we haven't talked about it. We can't, we debate as a group. So having them in our inbox doesn't mean we've acted, there's a risk that it sets up expectations if we get things too early, as opposed to saying we discuss it when it's on an agenda, we discuss it in a meeting. So there's a transparency issue there. There's a work issue for the staff. So we don't want to, add extra workload that's beyond, beyond reasonable. And then there's, and I think this difference, if it's, on the other hand, if it's something from the province, from VCH, from one of the agencies with which we have agreements, maybe those cases could be separated. But I think those are all embedded in that policy somehow. And I think changes to that policy could maybe help refine what we're doing and how this is, to find that balance between, all these pieces to make sure that we're not adding a lot of extra workload for staff, that people know what happens with things. They don't have unreasonable expectations. We're transparent, but we're also getting information in a timely way when to avoid situations where, that information could be useful because something happens like UBCM. I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Director Fall. Director Lennox, you're next.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I support the intent of this motion for a lot of the reasons that have been said already, especially if it's addressed to the person. I mean, that a lot of the time that makes a big difference in my eyes. If it's the board, it's the board. And I understand how that may take some time or not be as specific. And I think it is probably a good idea to look at this specific policy, because it also, in my mind, relates to emails that I get personal emails, Dear Jason, and I get the board and planning or whoever, you know, whatever. So those are handled differently. And I've been a little fuzzy on that over like, do I now need to provide that to my staff? Does it need to go on an agenda? So I think all of these correspondence issues be good, at least for me to understand our policy and incorporate the suggestions that you have into that.
Well, that's good feedback. Anyone else want to jump in on this? Yeah, I just want to.
I gave it some thought, and I think what we're wanting to do then is create some wording that might help us in the original policy, which means we need to refer this to like committee of the whole or something at the regional district to consider changes to this policy to address the concerns of the regional hospital district around timeliness of correspondence for hospital district. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what we need to do. That's my process recommendation.
Yeah.
Motion?
First I would ask staff if that made sense. If that's like, oh, you know, I don't want to do something that's going to make it worse.
Yeah.
It does. I think that if we're going to address it for timeliness, we should do it for everything. We used to only have one board meeting a month.
Okay.
And so how often we meet is up to the current assembly. So I would say that policy tells staff what to do. And if you want to change what staff is doing, change the policy. And if having correspondence in a timely manner, then that's where we do it. We do it in there. Additionally, if anybody wanted explanations around application of the policy, we can always do that external.
Okay, so then I would move to refer this to the committee of the whole over at the regional district to have them decide whether they want to have changes to that policy.
I'll second that.
Okay, that's moved and seconded. Any discussion? Director Fall.
Just thank you, Chair. Just briefly, I mean, I think I support this. I think we need to review that policy. It sounds like it would be useful to do, and it's really just we're heading into budget, and I just think you know, I mean, important as this is, I think it's not as time urgent as getting our budget done. So if we're able to do it, if there's a lighter agenda, but it could take some time to go through that. We've spent many hours going through the procedure bylaw now again. So I think this should roll out, and we should do it. You know, take the time needed to do a reasonable job of reviewing that when the time permits.
So this is being referred to the regional districts committee of the whole for review in relation to their greater policy. It's not our policy. Communications. Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. I'm actually going to move the motion that's been referred with the exception of or the board and all members of the board. So the motion would say that the board directs staff to provide any correspondence letters or emails addressed to the chair to be provided to the chair as soon as is reasonably possible. And I think that's different enough from the motion that was just referred to staff. It just says, if something's addressed to me, it comes to me. And if there's a seconder, I'll speak very briefly to it.
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion's moved and seconded. There's a lot of work going on in relation to trying to get facilities designated as healthcare facilities. And there's all kinds of things that I'm having to deal with Vancouver Coastal Health, with our working groups and memorandums of understanding. And I don't know how I can do my job if I have to wait 3 weeks to get the letters that are being addressed to me from the provincial government. So I think this motion just makes it very clear. If a letter comes in that's addressed to me, please send it to me in a timely manner as possible. That's it. Or whoever sits in this chair. That's it. Anyone else? Seeing none. Oh, Director Fall, go ahead.
I have a question through the chair, if I may, to our corporate officer. Is it my understanding is that a letter to the chair is the same as a letter to the board? Is that, I mean, I'm not entirely clear, but that's I understood that, for example, when a member of the public writes to the chair or to the board, that's effectively the body, but I'm not entirely clear on that. Maybe you could clarify for me.
Sure.
Thank you. I think that also has to be addressed through policy change. The interpretation of both of the sections that address this in the policy indicate that it will appear under correspondence on the next available agenda. So I don't know 100%, but I would have to analyze it and probably ask for some legal interpretation. It might be more cost effective to address it through a policy amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Director Elliott.
So I think this resolution would not preclude you to do what's in the policy as well. It would be following the policy plus doing this, you know, implementing this resolution. Ideally, the policy will change to something better in the future, and we could maybe rescind this motion. But what our chair is saying is there's an awful lot going on right now, and he really needs to receive his correspondence in a timely manner. And so he's asking the Assembly for a motion that provides a resolution that is in addition to what we have as policy. And I think that's how this would be interpreted by me anyways.
And that is my intent. Okay, anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? 2 opposed.
That he was just there twice.
Yeah, he is in both spots.
I've got 2 hands going on, but they're all under.
I see 6 director falls right now.
Well, I got a weighted vote.
Yeah, he's got the weighted vote for the first time. Okay, so that motion is carried. Okay, on to 8.2 strategic plan progress report. That the board direct staff to provide a strategic plan progress report to the QRHD board regarding the status of previously adopted QRHD board resolutions. I think this is a fairly straightforward motion, and I believe it would come before us at an in-camera meeting, as it does first over at the regional district, prior to it, of course, being on a public agenda.
There is budget associated with that. It is not so costly, but it's probably going to be about $15,000 to do it.
$15,000.
If you want it in this similar format. Yeah.
We'll have a few questions. Okay, so the first question is, how much will this cost? The answer is $15,000. Director Fall, do you have something to say?
I just have a question. So I guess when I was thinking about this, I'm very concerned about, just piling everything on staff and adding extra work to kind of parse things out. And I know these systems work the way they work, so they, everything's merged together. So separating it seems like, so I guess the question through the chair, if I could, is that cost to produce a separated report, one for the RHD and one for the board, the QRD, or would it be different if we just put the same quarterly report that's on the regional board agenda, putting that quarterly report on the hospital district agenda, and then, the hospital district can have an opportunity to review the pieces of that are relevant for the hospital district. So I assume those quarterly reports have everything in them. So the question is that cost to separate it, or would it be a lot of extra cost to just put the same quarterly report on the hospital district?
That's a really good question through the chair. We just copy and paste.
It would be so much easier just to put it on as it is. Even maybe, although I wouldn't want to make a mistake, highlighting the appropriate ones would be more cost effective than building a whole new program for the regional hospital district. So that's much more cost effective.
I like that idea.
I like that too.
Thank you. And if I could just do a follow-up, I think it would be, even that extra work, I personally think we're adults here, we can figure it out. I think it's up to the chair to say, hey, that you can't, we're only talking about hospital district stuff here. If it's easy for staff, but I think likewise right now at the board, it hasn't come up, but if someone started talking about the hospital district on the strategic plan, I think it would be incumbent on the chair to say, it's not wrong assembly. We don't have everyone here. So I think that may be a solution here.
Oh, I like that solution. And do we need to have a separate motion or something a bit more detailed to say, hey, that it's just essentially copy and paste, or is this fine? Because it would.
If you said we, if we
The
direct the board, or the board directs staff to provide the strategic plan
That's all you need to do.
quarterly
Change A to
report,
the.
quarterly report to the QRHD board.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do.
Well, that's good because we haven't moved the motion, so we don't have to do an amendment.
I move that the board direct staff to provide the strategic quarterly plan progress report to the QRHD board.
Yeah. And then we just cross out everything after that regarding the status.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Oh, Director McCormick, go ahead.
Thank you. A question, is it possible to highlight the hospital district stuff? I mean, I don't support going 2 reports. Having the 1 report is fine, but just highlighting might be a way of quickly distinguishing which is hospital district and which isn't. My question is, can that be done?
I think this was answered, but through the chair, corporate officer.
We were going to attempt to try to do it. If it became labor prohibitive, we would just advise you of that.
Sounds good. Does that answer your question, Director McCormick?
Sorry, I couldn't hear quite what she said.
The corporate officer
They
said
make best efforts to do
they're
so.
going to do their best effort to do so, and if it becomes labor prohibitive, then they won't.
Okay.
Okay, I'm happy. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None. That is carried. And now, oh my goodness, 8.3. This is going to take all night. Director Southcott, would you like to move the motion?
Well, actually. Was this before I move that motion? Because this doesn't make any sense. I've just recently discovered that so the city recently, in recent years, has adopted doing in-cameras before the regular meetings. And the 3:30 committee of the whole meeting scheduled for the December 2nd has a 2 o'clock in camera now scheduled. So there is an alternative, and that is a couple of alternatives I can think of. One is we could advance the hospital district meeting to even earlier, or we could ask the city to change its schedule and do the in-camera after the committee of the whole, like the city used to do down the road. And I don't know which would work best for us.
And here I thought it would be a simple thing.
Yeah. But advancing this now to 1 isn't going to achieve the intended purpose.
Corporate officer, jump in on this one because scheduling tends to be your wheelhouse.
I mean, I could ask, but I think it's better for you to determine what time you want to meet at, because we need a resolution to change the meeting time. And so we could meet at 11 if everybody is okay with that change.
Well, I'm going to ask the individual most inconvenienced, Director Lennox.
Well, I don't know if I'm the most, but
Is that an inconvenience for you?
I'll make it work if that's what the only choice is. I'll do my other work at a different time.
Director Elliott.
Change the motion to ask staff to change the meeting date by working with city staff to do that, or do we all have to know we're available and all that and create a specific time right now?
I could call a special meeting just like this one, but then of course we run the risk of, do we have enough people to actually participate? Go ahead.
Alternatively, I'm looking at the December schedule. What about the 10th at 2?
The 10th at 2?
Because we have a planning committee that day. Although I don't have executive council's schedule right now. So Wednesdays are not good for
Yeah.
executive council.
And we don't have Director Delyth here right now to.
Is that what you mean by executive council?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So, they meet on Wednesdays is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
They typically meet on Wednesdays. Additionally, this might be good information. We have 2 regional board meetings scheduled for that week. So we could cancel the one on the 11th and have the hospital meeting there.
What we could also do is, we don't need to pass a motion here. We could cancel the meeting and then I as chair can call a special meeting
Yes.
when we get a time and
I
date.
really liked what you just said, though. We ended up canceling one of those anyways. And we have it in our calendars right now.
Yeah.
So,
And I can call it at the same time and date.
Why not,
Refer to staff.
no, that the board cancel the December regular meeting, and I will work with the chair and this board to determine a time that we can meet in December.
So moved.
Hopefully on a date when everybody is available.
and I do like the idea of replacing one of those QRD meetings with it, because it's in my calendar already.
Okay, moved by Director Gisborne,
Depending on,
seconded by Director.
Second.
Elliott.
Louis works out.
Okay, Director Paul seconds. Okay, Director Paul, go ahead.
And just very briefly, I mean, that actually works better for me because I was going to have to send my alternate to that meeting because I have a work trip that first week of December, but I am fully back on the meeting of the week where we have finance and board, and it really doesn't make any sense to have a board meeting 2 days after a board meeting. So I agree. One of those board meetings would be better to cancel and fill it in with these. So, but other than that, that whole week works for me. So thank you.
Okay, that's good. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None. That is carried. Okay, we have finished everything on our public agenda, and now we're going to go back to our in-camera session, but we've already read out the in-camera stuff, so we don't have to read that out again, right? Perfect.
Move back in camera.
Okay, members of the public, see you on the other side.
Oh, that's not.
They're all easier to herd than this last go at trying to get.
Recording in progress.
Usually are, or we, oh,
Yeah. We had a hard time finding a date, I think it was.
It was, yeah.
okay, cool.
We're good. We're back in a public session. Okay, order. Okay, we are back into public session. We have no rise and report, and therefore, after a long meeting, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for coming.
See you on Wednesday.
Wednesday.
So this is when I'm trying to figure, this is 2026.